Hello, folks. So in this video, I wanted to talk about how one can actually try to look at bad stuff or bad situations in a different perspective and in a different light than in a dark manner, but probably look at it with some light on it. Um, but the tricky thing is this, right? You can't do this for all situations, of course. For simple, small situations, we'll come to that. With situations you can't apply this idea, it would be stupid, absurd, and very rude and very um, disheartening or stone-hearted to actually try to add light to every dark situation or bad situation, um, or like problematic situation or every problem, right? This is what people generally popularly call it as, like, look at the silver lining, or silver lining in a broken glass or broken dish, or look at the silver lining in this whole situation and whatnot. So let me give you some examples, anecdotes from my life, right? So a basic example, like once I was in the washroom. So I actually stay in a hostel, wherein I actually share a room with my roommate. So it's a two people room, and uh, we have different beds, but same washroom. And I was in the washroom, so I was actually moving around his items so that I can keep my items. And when I was moving around his face wash, I actually dropped his face wash in the toilet bowl. Okay, I was like, damn shit. Now what do I do? Do I actually just leave it and not tell him? That would be very rude and very evil, right? And I was like, this guy was has been annoying me sometimes, and I was like, my evil mind was all working at the time, and I was like, no, 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 let's deal with this, let's do something. And then I was like, if I tell this to my roommate, he'll just get angry and whatnot. I was like, oh my god, like, I don't like fights, I hate fights, I hate arguments. They take up a lot of energy, time, effort, and it's useless. Arguments and fights are most of the time useless. It brings no benefit to anyone. Discussions are better, conversations are better, but fights, arguments to prove one person is right, the other person is wrong, and whatnot is just stupid. Is not wise. So I'll talk about that in a separate video maybe. But so I was like, I hate fights. Now if I tell this to him, what if he actually gets pretty pissed and angry and starts up a fight and whatnot? As like, okay, let's take this up as an opportunity and tell him the truth, and tell him that I can pay for it if that is the problem, right? Like, most probably that is the only problem. I'll say I'll pay for the whole bottle. Like, I think it was some 200 ml, 300 ml bottle. I was like, even if only half the bottle is over, it's fine. I'll pay for the whole bottle. I think it was just some 300, 400 bucks. I was like, it's fine. I waste money sometimes here and there. A lot of times I do it. So I'll just pay 300 bucks or whatever. And I made a mistake. I've always tried to avoid making that mistake of, like, whenever I'm moving his items, ensure that it doesn't fall on the floor or fall on the wash basin or the toilet bowl and whatnot. But then it fell this time, and while I was moving things around, it just happened. Okay, so it was a blunder, crazy stuff. It just happens. I was keeping it on on a shelf, a top shelf, and it fell off from it, and then I tried to catch it. It moved around and, like, moved around in the air. I tried to catch it, and then it just fell off, fell on the toilet bowls close by near the toilet bowl, and then inside the toilet bowl finally. So yeah, I told him. He was pretty chill actually. For a moment, he had a very confused and a bit of an angry face. I was like, I'm sorry, man. It fell off, and I was trying to keep it. I always try to ensure that it doesn't fall off and all that. But this time it fell. I'm sorry. I'll pay for it and whatnot. He said it's okay. I said no, man. I'll pay for it. And I didn't even have his phone number. So I said, just give me your phone number. I can just send the money. So in India, you can just pay money by just using the phone number. And then later I was like, okay, let me not, you don't want the money, it's fine. Still give me your phone number so that in case I want to call you or whatever, I have your number. He was like, yeah, okay, I'll give you the number, but don't send me money, I'll send you back. And he was very chill, he was very kind, right? So the good part over here, what I was trying to look at is like, in case he starts up an argument, he starts off fighting and whatnot, I was like, it's fine. I'll actually face the fight, I'll face the problem, and that will be the good part. The bad part is, of course, I made the mistake. So bad stuff can be you making a mistake, or some problem happening to you, or some situation, some problematic situation. In this case, I made a mistake of it, and there was also a very problematic situation. It just happened, right? It was an accident also, apart from my mistake. So it was a mix of multiple things, right? And then so he was chill, and things were okay, and I was like, wow, this went well, right? um, the other thing would have been just like me running away from the problem, which means I'm not facing the problem. I'm not checking out what happens when I actually tell him such stuff and whatnot, right? I think generally it's good to assume that people are considerate. It's fine if they are not, you will learn. Also, even if they are not considerate one time, doesn't mean they'll not be considerate another time. Like it's not like stock. Even in stocks, they say, right, past performance does not guarantee future returns, right? Past performance does not guarantee future performance and future returns, right? Meaning, in the past, if the stock or the mutual fund did really well, doesn't mean that in the future also it will do really well, right? Same way, in the past, if some person was great, later they may not be great. And in the past, if someone was not great, doesn't mean in the future they may like they'll still not be great. Maybe they can get better, right? Or they can get worse also and whatnot. So anything can happen. So, but yeah, of course, the number of times you can give a chance to a person, number of chances you can give to a person, it's like, no, there's only so much you can give because you have only so much time to give chances to people. We only have so much time, effort, and energy. Anyways, I think I spoke about this a bit before. Anyways, so yeah, I mean, in this case, I was fortunate enough to have a good situation wherein this person said, "No, it's fine. You don't have to pay." I was, however, planning to buy a new one, and it was almost over. Actually, it wasn't over. I think the face wash had some, at least half the bottle or around half the bottle left. Anyways, next situation, right? So yeah, uh, I actually made the mistake of actually getting someone's clothes, uh, dry clothes or wet clothes, out of a dryer. They were trying to use the drying machine, the dryer, and I thought they were actually putting the second load in my hostel. So it's a dryer, a common dryer for everyone, and people use it. And it's a very big machine, and it runs for some 50 minutes and dries up all your clothes, right? So this person, I heard that they had already used the dryer and they're using it the second time, and or something like that, right? And they had actually gone away in between. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna use it, right? And I took out their clothes. It was a mistake. They were pretty pissed when they came. They started fighting. I was actually smiling out of nervousness. I was like, oh my god, what is going to happen? And when I'm nervous, I sometimes end up smiling or like whatnot. I was like smiling, and it kind of became like a intentional evil thing also that I was doing, wherein I was smiling and being as if I was mocking them because of their behavior, because they were actually being very very rude. They were loud. They were very loud. They were shouting a lot. They were being very angry and whatnot. And it seemed very childish to me and very immature to me. And at some point, I was like wondering, what if he takes a shot at me and like punches me or something? I was like, okay, I don't know what to do. And I was just wondering that. And then I was wondering, what if he also starts taking out my clothes from the dryer, which I had actually put inside and whatnot. And he was actually saying, he was actually telling stuff like, what if I take your clothes out and throw it on the ground and put it out and whatnot, similar to how you did it. I actually didn't put it on the ground. I kept it safe. But according to him, I had no right in touching his clothes, which made sense. It's just that I was trying to call him and whatnot through many people, to his number and whatnot. He was a bit busy trying to get his clothes out of the washing machine and whatnot, and he said, I was trying to get my clothes out, and it was why would I pick up the call? And even if I don't pick up the call, doesn't mean you pick up my clothes, you touch my clothes, you don't have the right. Finally, the good thing was I actually faced the situation, faced the problem, no matter all the mistakes I made and the bad situation and whatnot. Finally, I accepted that okay, I'm sorry, I'll take out my clothes. And this was night time, and I was like wondering, should I wait for this drying process to get over and then put my dryer like for this guy. Then the hostel warden, the owner said, the night security guard will take care of it. So I was like, okay. And that's why I was actually very much into trying to get the drying done then and there than wait for the other guy. But then he wouldn't wait, and it made sense. His anger was justified. It's just that it was too much anger. He was shouting a lot for a lot of time, and he was very pissed. I had no idea what was his problem in his life and whatnot, or what was his mood, or how his day was. Probably it was a very bad day, or a bad week, or a bad month, or even a bad year, or just a bad life. Who knows? God knows. Anyways, so I faced the situation. The good thing was I faced the situation. The bad thing was, yeah, the situation happened, right? I made a mistake of not talking enough to him and like convincing him and whatnot, and I got a bit defensive, and he got very defensive and offensive and whatnot. Yeah, I mean, it was a proper verbal fight, though I wasn't talking much, and he was just talking a lot with continuous stream of words, right? So that was that, and then finally, fortunately, I didn't get punched or hit by him, and he didn't throw my clothes out and whatnot, and he just went away peacefully after that. After I said, okay, I'll take out my clothes. Like in between, there were some people who were trying to mediate the problem, and like the security guard and the hostel warden over the phone and the security guard in person and whatnot. Finally, I said, okay, I'll give up. Like I was fine to give up, and it was not a matter of giving up and all. I was just like trying to get my work done. It was late night, and the security guard said he will take care of the work of drying my clothes, and I said thanks, man, and then I went and slept. Okay. So I faced the situation, and that was a good thing, right? And what other bad things can happen? Like all these problems, situations, mistakes can happen, and then other people just doing things, right? For example, a lot of times I have been insulted, I have been mocked at, I have been disrespected, I have been laughed at, right? Mockery and getting laughed at is like not new for me, I think. Since school, I've been bullied and mocked at and laughed at. My usual response is actually getting defensive, offensive, and things like that, like wherein I try to be a rebel. That's usually my response. Fight or flight. I go for sometimes fight, sometimes flight, right? So I remember even in college this has happened. Someone was trying to drag me, and I was like, I was planning to go and what do you say, give in, but then some guy who was sitting near me didn't give in, and he started fighting, and I was like, damn. And he basically pulled me in also into his fight, though I was not doing anything. He said we both will not come. Why should we come? We were like first year university students, and they were fourth year seniors, and we were juniors and whatnot. And generally also I get mocked at. For example, people mock at me for say my behavior, the way I speak, or this has happened in school a lot, and even in college a bit, the way I walk or the way I do things and whatnot. My say my work, for example, say my YouTube content, they'll look at my content and just laugh at me. They'll say this guy can actually make food through words. He doesn't even go to the kitchen once or shows the food. He just uses words to cook food and whatnot. Yeah, I've done it. So a lot of people mock at me, laugh at me and whatnot, have insulted me and disrespected me and whatnot. The good thing is, like, for example, once someone told me that I'm not a team player, right? They literally told this to me, and I cried, like, kind of cried, and then couldn't cry actually that day. This was way back in 2018, 19, I think, when I had just started working. After 1 or 2 years after working, and they said you're not a, they said Karpe, you're not a team player, right? And I was like, okay. And then I said, in my team, so this was at work where I was working professionally, and then in my team Slack channel, like group channel, I said, hey, I'm not going to talk for some time because someone said I'm not a team player, and I'll reflect on it and things like that, something like that, right? And someone said they were very hurt, and that, that I said this, and they were asking who said it and whatnot. I denied replying, and then they said, please talk and whatnot, and don't say that you won't talk. And if you're not comfortable with someone saying to you that you're not a team player, then tell it to them and then disagree and whatnot. And I was like, maybe I felt like maybe they're right and whatnot. I don't know. Interestingly, the next day I had my convocation and I actually missed it. I was not feeling well, and like I was emoting very badly. I was like emotionally bad and very crazy that night. Like this was a Friday night or Saturday night, and Sunday morning or like the next day morning I had my convocation, I think. And I was like, okay, I'm not going, right? And however, I didn't register for the convocation also. That was also a problem. Anyways, so that was not a great way of dealing with it. But yeah, I was insulted. These days, if people insult me, I take it. I try to convert it into something that is actually useful for me, right? If someone says something wrong about me, finds a mistake in me, I'm like, okay, I'll take it. And I'm a very big self-critic, right? That is good in some ways, great in some ways, but very, very bad in many ways, right? So the self-talk and whatnot, when there is a self-critic within you, is actually very bad. Especially when the self-critic is doing the self-talk and participating in the self-talk a lot of times, and in a very, very rude and crazy manner. And also, I believe that if you can't talk to yourself in a very nice manner, then you're probably not talking to others or thinking about others in a very nice manner. So I'm still trying to get better with my self-talk, so that I can actually be empathetic with others also, while I'm actually empathetic with myself, right? So yeah, I mean, what happened is like, someone says, hey Karva, you didn't do this well, you made this mistake and whatnot. If I'm already realized the mistake, I say I'm sorry and whatnot. And let's say I made a mistake in public or in some specific space, I try to say sorry in the same space so that it makes sense. Because making a mistake in public, or like saying something wrong about someone, or making a mistake in public and then privately saying sorry and apologizing, doesn't make sense, in the sense that I just feel like I'm a coward then, courageously insulting or disrespecting someone or telling something bad about someone in public, but then privately and cowardly, apologizing, right? So this was something I wanted to talk about in a separate video. I'll talk about it. So yeah, I mean, if I make a mistake, I try to go and look at the good in it, and be like, okay, I made a mistake. I learn from the mistakes. Next time, I'll try not to make this mistake. And a lot of times, I've made the same mistake again and again. Let's say in teams and whatnot. Probably this is what someone told me long ago, that I'm not a team player, because I recently also made a similar mistake where I was not being a good team player, right? I was being a good organization person and whatnot, but I was not being a good team player. I was actually putting down my team, but keeping up the head of my organization. Ideally, I should be keeping up everyone's head up and not putting down anyone at the cost of anything, right? So be an expert, all that is fine, but be also humble and whatnot, right? So I believe in that, because there are enough jerks in the world, enough jerks who are experts. I want more experts who are humble, right, and who are more human. So I was like, okay, I made a mistake. This was something recent. I was like, and I went and said sorry. And when someone tells me something bad about me, gives me feedback that, or insults me and whatnot, I just take it and be like, Okay, I take it as motivation actually, to some extent. Like, they insulted me, they mocked me, and I'm like, okay, let's take it as something. For example, they probably exaggerated something about me, which is a fact, or which is something that happened, to some extent a fact. But the happening is a fact. But what they tell about me is probably not a fact. Just about my particular act or particular behavior, and so just because you make a mistake once or you have a toxic behavior for once doesn't mean you're a toxic person all the time. So there's a difference between toxic person. So very rarely people are toxic, more like behaviors are toxic. But then when the toxic behavior is too much, you could probably extend that to saying that no, toxic person and what. Anyways, so when they say something bad about me, saying something like Karpa, your videos are like long, or like your videos are random and whatnot. I'm like, yeah, it makes sense. And I'm like, yeah, it is meant to be like that. I kind of intentionally did it and whatnot. And then I accept it, right? I accept that long videos are hard to consume and whatnot, hard to see, hard to look at, and like understand and listen and whatnot. So and then they say things like you didn't finish your work very fast and whatnot. They mock at me. If I give you now, it's been the work has been around for 2 months. Maybe true, maybe not be true, and whatnot. But I'm like, yeah, makes sense. I agree, it's a mistake, and I keep quiet. I don't get so defensive. Very rarely I get defensive these days. But when I do get defensive, I just lose my mind and I'm like, I'm gonna be a rebel. I'm gonna be a rebel. That's all, right? Or and if I get defensive, it depends. My tone and all might change, might not change. Or I look at it more with defense and practicality, right? I'm like, okay, what is the point? The point being and whatnot, to understand how should I change stuff, because I've already done something, a mistake or not, but I've already done let's say some work. I've already done the work. Now how does the work change if this is the decision and whatnot? And then they're like, no, so I'm trying to discuss and whatnot. So it's important to understand when you get defensive and all, right? But usually when people insult me, I just smile. Sometimes I get pissed and whatnot, but these days I think I'm just used to it. People mock at me, laugh at me, and I'm like, it's fine, I don't care and whatnot. And people be rude to me. I'm still trying to understand how to understand and deal with rude behavior. It's a bit awkward for me sometimes, because it's really hard for me to take it that someone is being rude to me. Why are they being rude to me? But I can understand, like, for some reasons, say past issues and whatnot. But then it's just sad. I think the problem is mostly that I consider everyone to be at the same level, or though like not subconsciously or unconsciously, but consciously to some extent. Like, like, even if I hurt one person, or even if one person is rude to me, I'm always concentrating on that one person being rude to me than like looking at the other people who are being kind to me, right? So yeah, I mean, I think it's important to look at the good stuff, and understand why the bad stuff is happening, say mistakes or situations or problems, and take the good out of it. Like, say people mock at me, insult me, I take it as a motivation. If people challenge me or put me down, I take it as a motivation and challenge, and be like, okay, you put me down, I'll actually get back up and show you that I can actually do something, right? I can actually prove myself to you. Though you don't have to do that always, by the way. It really depends on what is the context and whatnot. You really don't have to prove anything to anyone. You don't have to prove your talent or potential, or try to reach your potential and show that you have potential and whatnot. Though if you want to do it for yourself and to show it to yourself, sure, please go ahead, do it. But I take it as motivation for myself, especially, right? Because I also sometimes think, yeah, like, I also sometimes think that, hey, yeah, probably they're right. Like, I'm not doing well enough. I should probably do better. So let me take this as motivation, and let me think of something better, how to improve. Let me think of how to improve and get better, and like, use this as motivation, this challenge, this criticism, this feedback, this rude insult or rude thing that they said or whatever. Let's take it up and convert it into something that can motivate me, inspire me to do better, to get better, to improve, right? So that's that. So yeah, if someone insults me, I take it as like some good thing also, apart from sometimes getting defensive, of course. And similar for my, like mocking, insults and whatnot, right? So, and laughing at me and all. So where can't you apply this, right? Of course, when things are very bad, for example, someone dies, say, let's say you know someone and then their say their relative or someone dies, you can't go and tell them like, look at the good side, they are at heaven and whatnot. That would just be rude, right? A lot of people will take it as rude things. So if something really bad happens, let's say like, someone dies through natural causes, worse through god forbid through man-made causes, say through an accident, road accident and whatnot, or they got murdered and whatnot, right? Very crazy stuff. So and stuff like, say someone got assaulted, acid attack, crazy stuff. You can't be like, look at the silver lining and whatnot. That's just not gonna work. That they'll just like, if they could, they'll just kill you, right? Like, they'll get so angry if you tell someone who got assaulted that, look at the silver lining, look at the good side of things and whatnot. You can't always say that to someone, like, look at the good side of things when something bad has happened or some mistake has happened by them, or someone caused problem for them and whatnot, or some big issue has happened, right? So, and then you can't say something like, look at the bright side, look at the good side and whatnot, when someone gets, say, abused, physically abused, emotionally abused, mentally abused, and say sexually abused, sexually harassed, or worse, like they got raped and whatnot, right? So, say marital rape or just rape in general, you can't say, look at the bright side. That's just very, very rude. That's very insensitive to say. So you should understand when you can actually say terms like, look at the bright side, and actually apply that idea of looking at the bright side. Um, a lot of people can't apply it anywhere at all. That's fine too. And a lot of people can't apply it in many things, like similar to what I just said now, like say someone died or things like that. It's fine, that's how it is, because something really, really bad happened. But when something small that seems big happens, it's again subjective. Like something small as like you failed a subject, or you couldn't get a job and things like that. Maybe it's big depending on the context and whatnot. Let's say that's your very important exam, or let's say it was a very important job that you needed to get money and whatnot. But yeah, sometimes some things are small. When you look at hindsight, let's say after a week or after a few months, after a year or after a few years and whatnot. But then at that moment, they may seem big. So maybe you can try to apply the look at the bright side, but of course not to very, very bad situations like heartache, wherein you lost someone, say they passed away, or you lost a relationship, a romantic relationship, because you had to break up and whatnot. It can be pretty hard on you, so you can't look at the bright side always. And you will just be a bit disturbed by the problems that happen. But then yeah, you'll learn to move on. But some problems, maybe you can learn to also look at the bright side and try to actually work on them, and especially mistakes and all that. Instead of beating up yourself like for mistakes, especially, or dwelling in problems, the small problems and whatnot, whatever you define as small. So yeah, I mean, sometimes it's a great idea to look at the bright side for small things when small bad things happen. So yeah, that's all I had for this video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.